Hi, I'm Clésia Mendes and welcome to Womanhood from the Inside Out. In this interview series, we'll be discovering and uncovering the nature of womanhood from the inside out. Why is it important? When does it show? How can we identify it? And what are the implications of womanhood from the inside out? And today's guest is my dear friend, Wendy Saggese. Wendy studied human development for over 37 years. She has coached, mentored, taught, and written the curriculum for several seminars with big names, with people such as Tony Robbins, and much, much more. Wendy is also the founder of Wake Up Your Wisdom Coaching and Consulting. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi.
Hi, lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And my first question is, how did you first came across these principles?
Oh, great question. Let's see. Well, as you saw, I studied a lot of things, and I really tried so many years to change myself. And then I gave up. I just stopped and raised my family. And I don't know if this is really true or not, but what I did was I just remember having a sort of a thought or a prayer inside it, like, if there's something else out there in the world, I would love to know what it is. Because in the different things that I've done, I feel like I raised to a level in the top of, let's say, one seminar or another way of thinking or another technique. And I would have some insights and I'd find truth in them, but I never really found that I personally changed. I still had a lot of ways that I wanted to change. So a friend of mine went to a psychiatrist. He was really depressed. I said, just since you happen to like medication, I personally don't, that's my own opinion, I would rather not go there at the first step. Go get a prescription for something since you're depressed. Do something. Well, it turned out that the person that he went to was a psychiatrist, and he stopped everything. He stopped everything, every technique. He didn't use drugs, and he taught about the 3 principles. Well, my friend came back, really shifted. Something happened. And so the nature of me is I'm always looking to see. I'm always curious about human development and how I could feel better. So I went spinning off about something. I was upset. And this is what I remember. I was busy in my head, and I was really upset about something. I can't even remember what. But after this guy talked to me, I remember just looking around at his office and feeling like a newborn baby with, like, just looking at the books and the ceiling and just having this feeling of nothing on my mind, nothing, just exploring. And I walked out of there thinking, what did this guy do to me? Did he hypnotize me? What is this stuff? And sorry about that. And I had to know what he did. So then I went to the Pransky and Associates, and I took a professional training. I mean, I think I did some seminars in between. And then I found out that it wasn't actually a technique or a trick. It was actually, he had this way of showing you how to tap into your own inner wisdom. That's always there. And so I kept on studying more and more. And as I look into these principles more and more, it opens me up. Like I'll have a little bit of an understanding, and then it'll make me feel good. The understanding will make me feel good, and I'll see a way of doing things. Like, I'll just have what they call an insight, which is a sight from inside of me. Nobody's giving you any kind of advice. That's what I love about the principles. There's no dogma, there's no advice, there's no prescription of how to do it. I'm always telling my clients, when you get to that quiet space you might not act in a political correct way, but that might be right. You're just in this space where you're quiet. And another word for an insight is a new thought. It's just that you like, when I walked out of that psychiatrist's office, I was just quiet. From that place of quiet up here and not thinking so much about how you're going to figure things out or about what's upsetting you, out of that thoughtlessness came so many more ideas and such a realization for my friend as well as for me, as we're always living in the feeling of our thinking. And I've got to laugh at that because I have a 13-year-old son, and he's like, I know we're living in the feeling of our thinking. And it's a silly little catchphrase, but there's really no exception. And what I mean by that is we think that a circumstance is causing us to feel a certain way. And it makes sense to think that. I mean, some circumstances really stink. And I might as well just jump to the fact that I have cancer.
Right. Oh, if you want, because you jump into the fact, and it would be cancer stage 4, is that correct?
I do have stage 4 cancer. Even cancer, which is not pleasant. I'm not going to tell you it's my best friend. I've learned so much from it. I don't like that I have cancer, regardless of. There are people out there that just think it teaches them all these lessons, and yes, it does, but I would prefer not to have cancer. But even the moments when I'm emotionally upset about cancer, I'm not living in the actual circumstance of cancer. I'm living in the feeling of my personal thinking about cancer. And that has changed my life. I mean, before I was walking around with cancer and that's all I could see. And now with cancer, with this crappy circumstance, I have more joy and more fun in my life than I've ever had. And I can see when I'm caught up in my thinking. So go ahead.
What I was about to ask, Wendy, is that could you just for our listeners, because they're getting to know you for the first time, could you just tell us a little bit more about when did you came across this understanding, and if it's okay with you, when did you discover that you had cancer? So maybe you could make a comparison before and after the understanding, if it makes sense.
Great, thanks for keeping me on track. This is good. Okay, so I got cancer in 2010, and it was at that point stage 3. And just because people like to know that have cancer is that I had a mastectomy and then did some different things and did a couple clinical trials. And anytime someone wants to ask me questions about that, that's fine. But I don't want to go too much into that.
Absolutely not. People can contact you on your website for that. Yes, if they.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was in 2010. And I think it was about 2 years later where I found the principles. Now, when I first was diagnosed with cancer, emotionally, it was pretty unbearable. I mean, I remember some really, really difficult times. And I think it was 2 years in, and I remember saying to my husband, I had just sort of found out about the principles, and I said, I am so uncomfortable with this, and I'm such a bad mom to my children right now. We just need to learn more about this, because I was so upset. I didn't feel like I was present for my kids. I felt like I had to put on an act that I'm happy and everything's fine. And it was so uncomfortable that I couldn't be there. I was just so caught up in what's going to happen in the future with the cancer. And I would wake up in the middle of the night a lot thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? Should I go alternative? Should I go traditional? What should I do? So 2 a.m, I would have this thinking, and it was unbearable. And I learned about the principles, and I kept studying about the principles and looking. I don't know if I'd call it studying. Let's call it looking in the direction of the principles.
Mm-hmm.
And I started seeing that my thinking would calm down. So for instance, in the middle of the night, I would spin off into what am I going to do about this cancer?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in that moment, I needed to figure it out. But then as I learned more about the principles, I realized if I woke up thinking about that, I also started to realize that you don't have to figure it out to feel better.
Mm.
So I used to think you have to go over there and figure out what you're going to do in the world. Okay, let's figure out you're going to do this therapy, and that'll make you feel good right now. What I learned was I don't have to figure that out. But when my mind settles down and I'm in a better place, then I could figure it out. Like we always think we have to figure something out when we're in that place where we're spinning off. And that's been a huge change in my life. Now, if I hear myself spinning and freaking out about something, I know that I have to settle. I don't even have to. That thinking will settle down.
Mm.
And as that thinking quiets down, like when I went to the psychiatrist and I was just thoughtless, then I have this innate wisdom inside of me, as we all do, that will allow an answer to come.
Mm.
So Clésia, it's changed everything for me. Everything, every relationship, my kids, my husband, my cancer, my new business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I hear myself going like, okay, figure it out. You got to do something. Hurry up. I know that it's time for me to let my mind settle down.
Mm-hmm.
And that a new answer will come because we have this innate wisdom inside us. I'm always thinking, I tell my new clients that it's like when you have, I fell pretty hard on my knee a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And I cut my knee pretty bloody cut. And my body just knows to close that cut up. And I don't poke at my body to close the cut up. I don't take a pen and start poking it so that it could close up. And that's how our thinking works. When we're out of sorts, we don't need to fix it. We have an innate wisdom. The same wisdom that heals that cut is the same wisdom that could work for us if we leave it alone, pretty much.
Mm.
To some degree, leave it alone and not try to think or fix or feed that moment of troubled thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense at all?
It does. And what occurred to me is one of the examples that one of my mentor used to use a long time ago when he was just learning about the principles himself. And do you know those balls that have glitter inside? There is like water and glitter inside, the bouncy balls. I had a couple of those that I'm giving away.
They usually snow globes.
Yeah, snow globes. We can use that example. And what he used to say is that imagine you've got a snow globe and you keep shaking the snow globe. And the shaking of the snow globe are all your thoughts, concerns, projections, expectations of the future, ideas from the past. Everything is shaking your snow globe. And your natural state of your mind is actually the clear water. So we think that when we are in a snow globe, we need to figure something out. And he said, but if you just let it settle and you see the flakes coming down, then the natural state of your mind emerges. And that is when you get your best ideas, because you've got access to all most up-to-date information. So it's the figuring out is shaking it. That won't serve you, but the let it settle will serve you. And sometimes people may think, oh, okay, so what I need to do is to take myself to that quiet space. And it's not even required, because you just need to wake up to the fact that that is your natural state, right? And as you look into this direction, you start waking up, more and more often. That the state of clarity, creativity, and insight is your natural state. So you tend to snap out of situations a lot faster. So that is what came to mind right now.
That's perfect. It's beautiful. And it's what the people like Eckhart Tolle are talking about, because when you're messed up in that thinking, you're either in the future or in the past. You're in this thinking place, and it doesn't leave any space to be present. The other idea I have with that too is I have a baseball kid. He's pretty competitive. And I'm always talking about, when I coach people or parents with baseball, or this kid of mine, when he'll listen to me, you have a second for that baseball to come through. And if you're thinking about where it's going to go, or the future, or how it's going to turn out, or you're thinking about your last time you had the baseball coming at you. This baseball is coming maybe 60 to 80 miles an hour at his age of 13. Mm-hmm. So you have just a second. So if you are as present as you can possibly be, which is what all the teachers from way back, it's what meditation is about. If you're right here, right there with the ball, then you have the best chance of hitting it. And that's how I feel with everything. And if I need to make a decision about cancer, for instance, I mean, I could write these two lists and say, okay, if I do this, do this, do this. But that's not where the real decision is made. It's not, the real decision doesn't have to be all caught up in the intellect. Mm-hmm. And here's an example. Since my whole family works with the principles, and my son, I've been nagging him, the one at home, mm-hmm. He's 13. He's come with us to a few seminars, and I lecture him and he tells me to shut up, but and honestly, he sometimes tells me things as well, because he gets it.
Yes.
Sometimes.
He also is in touch with his own wisdom, so there you are.
Thank you. Yes, that's true. So he had to make the choice of which high school to go to a few weeks back. And that would ordinarily put my whole family into a place of stress. Oh my God, what is he going to do? What if he does this and it's wrong? What if he does this and it's wrong? And what's so funny is the parents are all coming up to you all the time. Well, what's Thomas deciding? How are you going to do? So with this new understanding about the principles, and about the fact that we don't really, really have to write lists or use our intellect to make these decisions, he had to make the decision by Friday at 4:00. It was Monday. So, we went to both high schools. He went to both high schools. I just put him there with other kids. And each day I said to him, so what are you thinking today? He's like, I don't know, maybe this one or maybe that one. Well, it came to Friday at 3:00. And I said, just in case the computer doesn't work, let's go do it right now. So Thomas chose the one high school. And there was never stress throughout the whole week. He didn't go into this thinking place about it. Mm-hmm. And neither did I. And then after he made his decision on Friday, my husband said to him, I bet that's a relief. And my son said, not really. It wasn't a hard decision, because he didn't go into his intellect and try really hard. Mm-hmm. And a few days later, I heard about another kid that almost had a nervous breakdown making this decision. Mm-hmm. And a year or two ago, we would have, as a family, been so stressed out. And then after Thomas made that decision, a mom came up to me and said to me, why did he make that decision? How did he make that decision? And I said to her, oh, I'll have to ask him. I don't really know. And then I thought about asking him, and I said, why would I ask him? Because I know that he made the decision from a space of quiet, So why would I want to put him back into that space of trying to figure it out? Because that's not where we make decisions. And what's so beautiful about that is every time I work with someone or myself and I need to make a new decision about my cancer treatment, I do my very best to allow for that, because that's where you have the best shot at hitting the ball, because you're here, you're present. That ball's coming 20 miles an hour, 30, 40, 50. And in order to hit that ball, you think you have to think about it, but you really don't. Any great sports person knows about being in the zone, right?
Yes.
And that's what the principles are. It's a way to get you into the zone. And you could do it with your relationships. You could do it with making a big life decision. You could do it with teaching your children. I mean, it's just changed my life so much.
And I'm so glad you spoke about that, because that would be one of my next questions. How has the principles impacted your children and your family? But in your example, you already included everyone. So you spoke about your husband, you spoke about your teenage son, that some parents may think that are maybe quite challenging times, but your teenager is communicating and he's making his own life decisions. So he's also in touch with that wisdom. So what a gift that is.
It's a gift. And what's so beautiful about the principles is once you start learning about the principles, and it's not really a learning, it's an experience. It's like the people like you or me that have a little bit of an understanding. We point people in this direction. Okay, there's the roller coaster over there. And we tell about our feeling and how it's changed our life. And then that person comes back to us and takes a ride on the roller coaster. And then you're like, wow, you had that experience. Like one of my clients, Patty, actually, for the first week, she argued with me that the principles is just like 3 other things that she knows about and whatever. But I still kept talking to her, and she read a few of the books, and she had a little discomfort with somebody at work. And one day she came back to me, and we had talked about this woman at work, and the woman was very judgmental towards her. And all of a sudden, from that quiet place, she looked at the woman that used to make her feel uncomfortable. And all of a sudden, she just turned her back and did her job and realized, oh my gosh, that woman isn't my job. The people at my work are what I'm here for, to teach them. And it was like the experience that I had in the doctor's office, where this quiet, settled downness of thinking, strategizing how to work it out, stopped, and she just did what she did. And I will tell you for sure, her relationship with that person has never been the same, because she now knows that it's not the person that's making her feel these ways. It's her thinking about the circumstance or what the person is doing. And she just did her job, and now she can't. What's so funny about the principles is once you've had this roller coaster ride or this experience of how the principles works in your life, you can't go back. And the principles is not something that's not already working in everybody's life. It's not even a thing. It's something. It's a framework of how life just works. It's already working in everybody's life. Yeah. But when we understand that it's already there, when we see the equation of the principles and how life works, we're able to say, oh yeah, I know when I gave birth to my first baby, I didn't have to think about how am I going to love him. I didn't have to strategize. It was just this innate feeling for me. The love was just there. And that's how life is. The decisions are just there. The parenting, the ideas are just there when we're not so busy in our mind trying to figure it out and think if we are right or wrong. I have another kid story if you want to hear it too.
Oh yes, please give us another kid story.
Okay, so of course I have a 21-year-old and I have a teenager.
Right.
And now my teenager the one I've been talking about, he is a baseball player. And he is real competitive, and he wants to be really good at it, but he also wants to have a lot of fun. But anyway, long and short of it is, I decided that I want him to do this new team because I feel like it will make him grow, right? Mm-hmm. He hates the team. He doesn't want to do it. He's super mad at me. So we drive about an hour away, to about 45 minutes away, to go to this team anyway. I said, you know what? Let's do it and see. Because I know he tends to be stubborn until he gets to know the coaches and all that.
Right.
So, and this is going to sound so the opposite of what you would think you should do with the principals, because we do know our children have their own wisdom. But this is what I did regardless. Now, on the way back from going to that team, he told me how much he hated it. And I told him, you know, we both kind of are in our thinking a little bit, and we're feeling in a little bit of a bad mood. So let's not talk about it right now. Let's just see what happens. And he's familiar with this way of talking. So he stops for a minute, and then he keeps on baiting me, which teenagers are really good at. He wants to, you could feel it. He wants to have a fight. And right. My is kind of going a little crazy. And I'm like, I know we shouldn't talk about this, but really, would you just be quiet? You know, Thomas, really, let's discuss. You know, I had a little uptight. So together, two uptight people, you're getting nowhere. But in that moment, that's what happened. So we come home, and I realized, wow, Wendy, you just really took the bait and got into it. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I should apologize. And then he was thinking about it, and he came to me and he apologized. And I said, oh my gosh, I was going to apologize because I was off base too. So that's what happened the first time.
Wow.
Okay. We put that to rest for a couple weeks. And then I talked to my husband, and I felt like, you know, Thomas, you love baseball and you've been in the same situation for a while, and I want to see you grow. And I know you don't like this coach. He's kind of a crotchety person. He's like mean, a little bit mean. Not really mean, but he's harsh, you know? And I see it as Thomas is really having a lot of thinking about this guy, and he's making that he's stopping from doing this new experience because he has all this busyness. Mm-hmm. So this time we go about the 45 minutes away, and my husband and I both decide that he's going to try it. We're going to try it again. Mm-hmm. So we're in the car, and oh my gosh, Thomas is pulling out every punch to try to have a fight with me. He's right. Mad at me. He's saying, this is so stupid. How come you're making me do this? And I'm driving. I'm like, you know what? To be honest with you, honey, I don't know if I'm right or wrong to make you do this. I really don't know. But I do know we're going. Mm. You could talk it up all you want, and you could think that it's a terrible experience, but right now in this moment, we are going, and that's that. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to fight with me. He's just like, it reminds me of a little rat in a cage trying to get out, because he feels bad and he's trying to find every which way. And it's in the form of, because teenagers do this, and so do we, mm-hmm. It's in the form of trying to bait me, to try to get me to turn around. He's thinking that if I turn around and don't make him do this, he's going to feel better. A lot of thinking, right? And you'd have to ask him, but that's the way I see it from my point of view. Yes. We get to the field, and I say, listen, you know, you need to run out there. We're a little late, and you need to be respectful. And he says, I'm going to be respectful no matter what. He runs out on the field. He gets out there. The practice is a terrible practice. It's exactly what my son hates about any practice. He comes into the car, and he is talking up a storm, and he's so happy, and nothing changed. The circumstance didn't change. Nothing changed. And he comes into the car, and, you know, teenagers, especially mine, they don't talk a lot when they're pissed. They talk a lot when they're feeling good. Right. He is just talking up a storm, and we're both saying, yeah, that wasn't the best practice in the world. And he's just telling me, I said, you know, Thomas, I love this because even me as your mom, I saw how you're thinking. You thought it was the situation that was making you feel bad. You came off the field, the situation totally changed, and you came off the field and you feel good. Nothing changed. It was a crappy practice, but you came here and you were talking to me. And what if I would have turned around in the middle of your going crazy and said, okay, honey, you don't have to do it. I feel like I did a service for me and him to just keep on doing what we had to do, what we wanted to do. And then now I just showed my child that you don't have to be ruled by your thinking. And what else would you want to teach your children or have them? I don't know that I teach my children or whatever, but for some reason, I don't really know if it's right or wrong to make your kid do things, but it was such a beautiful experience because even I get tricked by his thinking and everything shifted. And then a few days later, we spoke to a friend of mine who is going through a tough time in her marriage. And I'd been explaining these principles to her. And I told her what happened with Thomas. Was Thomas there?
Yeah.
And he says to me, Mom, you just weren't going to bite at all. There was no way I was going to win. And I said, yeah. And I looked at him and I'm like, you pulled out every punch, didn't you? And he said, yeah. And nothing was working at all.
Wow.
So it was so interesting and so fun because each time something like that happens, I see again, oh yeah. And now when my personal thinking goes crazy and thinks I got to do this or I got to go to the gym or not go to the gym or eat or not eat, I could just wait and let it settle down. And then from that settling down place, then decide what I'll do next in anything. Yeah. And it's so different than anything I'd ever learned in that because it's almost the opposite. It's like your mood shifts. It's an innate wisdom we have. It's not about anything out there. When we shut up here, when we're able to see it and shut up, something happens. And I recently learned George Pransky has a way of describing this, and I love it because he called me on something with my other kid.
Right.
I mentioned my other kid. He'd come to me. He'd be really stressed, and I'd get stressed and all into it with him. And George Pransky has this saying about feeding the rabbit. There's a movie called Harvey, and it's an old Jon Stewart movie, and Harvey's an imaginary rabbit.
Right.
And he uses the rabbit to describe thoughts. Thoughts just are like clouds. They come to go, not to stay. They're just thoughts. So let's say Thomas, when he was going to that baseball practice, he was thinking how much it was going to be a terrible experience. He was sure he was right in that moment. And then he got out and ran on the field, and that thought passed. Now, if I would have said to Thomas, yes, it is, let's just turn around because you don't feel good about it, I would have been feeding that thought. And how would he ever have seen past it? Well, let me scratch that for a minute, because he has his own wisdom. But let's just say, how would Wendy have ever seen past it? You know? So what I was doing with my other child that I got called on is my child would call me from college all stressed out and everything, and I try to fix him. Mm-hmm. This is the beautiful news about the principles. You don't have to fix anything because we're healthy. We're just a thought away from health. And by me trying to fix those transient thoughts that my other son had, me thinking that there was something to fix, I was feeding the imaginary rabbit.
Wow.
And guess what? He was going into those thoughts more. Me trying to fix it, I'm saying there's something broken. It's not just a thought. It's something. It's real. And I'm going to fix it. And I'm feeding that imaginary rabbit. One of the questions George asks, so as a therapist, I'm going to ask you. Are you okay with me asking you a question?
Okay. I don't know what will show up, but I'm open. Let's go.
So you have a client. You're a therapist. You have a client.
Yes. Okay.
And by the way, I'm stealing this from George Pransky of Pransky and Associates.
Okay.
you have a client and they come with an imaginary rabbit.
Right.
And they say, well, we'll work on my issue in a minute, but would you just feed my rabbit first? Give him some food. Would you feed him or not? Don't worry if you get it wrong or right or whatever.
You're talking about the bunny that does not exist.
Yes.
Okay. So I would say from a perspective of a therapist, and I would think first of all to meet people where they are before I can guide them elsewhere. So I could pretend to buy into the story of the rabbit. Oh, tell me more about your rabbit. I would ask more questions to start with. Yes.
Okay, I could see how you would say that. Now, let's say my other son, his imaginary rabbit was his stress. I was feeding that stress. I thought for a minute I had to fix him and help him fix himself. And I was feeding these ideas that stress is really true.
Right.
So actually, I wouldn't feed the rabbit for that reason, because I was guess where I was going with feeding his imaginary stress? Nowhere. I was going deeper into this idea that there was something wrong with him. And I was wondering why the heck I wasn't making any progress and why I wasn't able to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was, when I got called on that, I called my son on the phone. I was in Washington at the Pransky's, some professional training. And I called my son. I said, you know what? I've been feeding this idea that you're broken. I'm so sorry. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But as soon as I shifted, I was able to point him in the direction of, when you are in that place of thinking your thoughts are absolutely concrete and true, what I could do is gently show you something else, how they move. They move constantly. They're beautiful like that. It just keeps moving. But we're set up to believe it. It's like a movie. I watch my husband right here on this couch. I'm washing the dishes, and he's watching the zombie shows.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a wimpy guy. He's watching the zombie, and he's like this. Oh, he's going to get you. Our thoughts do that. Our thoughts feel so true in the moment. But if you wait a minute, go ahead.
That reminds me of a story. I don't know if it's true, but it has to do with Milton Erickson, that it was a very famous hypnotherapist. I'm under the impression he was the one actually created in the beginning. And there is this story about Milton Erickson, that he was treating a patient that the patient thought he was a corpse. So Dr. Erickson was trying to, first of all, get to the place where the patient was before he could lead him elsewhere, because he knew naturally that the patient was alive, but he was adamant that he was a corpse. So the Milton Erickson said, "Oh, so do corpse bleed?" And the patient go, "No, corpse do not bleed." So he said, "With your permission, may I prick your finger, with something." So he pricked his finger, and a small drop of blood started pouring in from his finger. And so Milton Erickson points to the blood in his finger, and the patient goes, how about that? Corpse do bleed. And that has to do with our thinking. Because we are always feeling our thinking moment to moment to moment, we're going to feel and experience whatever we are thinking, even if we have to make up a story that makes no sense whatsoever, to fit with the model of the world that is going on in our mind.
We do. I read some of Erickson too, and one of the things I don't really understand, but I loved in his stories, is that he would tell a story that had nothing to do with the exact problem, and then the person would get healed, like from bedwetting or something like that. And what I was doing with my son is I was just diving into this idea that he needed to be fixed. Like, something about what Erickson did makes me think that something that he maybe was doing is just allowing the mind to settle down, you know, and see the peace. But I love that so that mind of that person, I love that he was pricked with blood and then he changed his story in order to fit his thinking around it again, right?
Yes.
That's pretty funny. So I've never worked with a person quite like that, but I do know with my child, after that, I'm so much more helpful.
Mm. Mm.
And even, you know, with my son that I made go to that baseball training, I don't know that that's right or wrong still. It just was what we did. But I still love what come out of it. And to tell you the truth, I'll keep you posted on this, but yesterday he went to a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And he came off the practice and told me about something he learned. Now, he's told me many times he doesn't like the coach.
Mm-hmm.
And he came off in a very great mood. And he told me about something he learned. He's kind of stubborn, like most teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him to say that, I'm so happy that what I could give that child is to see past the moment of your thinking. And so later in life, when he has a boss, he doesn't say, oh, I don't like the boss, so I'm going to now quit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think he has this new experience of, you know, sometimes it's not, your thinking goes wacko about an experience. And just let it shift. It does that naturally, and then give it some time, because I actually think I see him learning on this team right now. He's still on the team. He's still doing it.
Yes.
In fact, the other day he said to me, Mom, you told me 6 times. You just try it. I told him, just do it 6 times, and then after that you want to quit. So he says to me, you told me 6 times. And in the moment I didn't know what he was talking about. So I said, what are you talking about? And then he said, oh, forget it. So to me, what that meant with my particular child is he likes the team now a little bit, even for now. He doesn't really want to pursue that, because trust me, he's a teenager. He will tell me I'm done.
Right.
So, I mean, whether you make your child do something or you don't believe in making your child do something, when you understand about our thinking,
Mm-hmm.
you just have a better shot of hitting the ball always.
Oh, Wendy, I absolutely love this. I am aware that we are coming towards the end of our show. And before I ask you to give people your website, I just would like to add that what really came for me is the love that you've got for each other, and teenage years could be quite difficult, and is the respect and the space that you guys have to grow together, because it's you, your son, your husband in a car. The entire story, it was pushing your buttons, and you were aware of what's going on, and then you afterwards you're talking about it from a playful space. To me, it became very clear how much you love each other, how much you respect each other, and how much you trust that you are in wisdom with each other. And that's beautiful. So if more parents could have access to that, that would be incredible. Thank you. And Wendy, how can people find you if they want to get in touch? Yes.
So my website is wakeupyourwisdom.com.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you could just get in touch with me through that.
Okay, that's wonderful. And what I'll do, I'll put a link on the page, on the YouTube page below, so people have the direct link. About me, if people want to find me, they can go either to Facebook, so that would be facebook.com/Clésia.Mendes, and I'll spell that. So that would be facebook.com/CLESIA.MENDES. Or if you prefer, you can go directly to my website. So that would be www.clesiamendes.com. And Wendy, before you go, what would be your parting thoughts for our listeners today?
Parting thoughts, huh? Just just there's a space of health inside all of us. And it's so simple. There's so much on the internet for free to understand this. And once you understand it, it opens up so much to you. I would suggest that people look at your site, my site. There's videos on my site. There's so much out there. I searched for so many years. Oh my gosh, I was 17, 16. And I just so wanted to fix myself. And now this simplicity of how it really works. And I want to say one more thing is that if you are a Christian or you're a Buddhist or you're a Muslim, it doesn't matter. You could still see, we have so many people in this community that are of a certain religion. And that's what's so beautiful about the principles. You could have the principles and then you can make your religion even more meaningful because you see it's just about the way life works.
Yeah.
So there's so much out there. So
oh, that is beautiful.
Come on down.
Come on down. You follow the white rabbit, as they say. Come on a journey if you feel it's right for you, but if not, it's fine. We are discovering and we're getting deeper and deeper. And you just keep connecting to these episodes. So every single week, I'm interviewing new fabulous women, and you get to learn from their experiences and see if there is anything that resonates with you. Wendy, we are partying now. Thank you so much for coming today. Big kisses.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.